Okay. So first thing is like we always worry about um, the utility money we pay to service providers, right? So typically, if you see from uh, the biggest challenge in terms of service provider is on the electricity bill, which we recently had. I think most of you are very upset with your electricity bill, or at least a few of us. A few of us are very happy because our utility is very small. The government gives the subsidy, so it becomes like a more economical for us in terms of uh, in terms of reducing our electricity bill to a larger proportion. Okay, why actually it happens? Okay, this is the first question that comes to our mind. Then how to make the electricity bill at my home to be consistently or the same, meaning that why suddenly 1 month or 2 months my electricity bill is very heavy compared to other months. Typically the usage is the same, right? So we have to find the reason, we have to reason out why this is actually happening. So these are the things that we comes to our mind when we talk about the TNB part. So if you see from your typical home, so any type of utility, it is normally called as a watts. So watts is basically the power that is utilized by the any type of equipment. Say for example, you have a fan, you have a bulb, you have a washing machine, your refrigerator, your aircon. All it's consuming the power in terms of watts. We call this one as a watts, and uh, over 1,000 range is what we call as a kilowatt. Kilowatt is the power that is consumed in our. This is a typical power. uh, we call this one as a power rating, or power is measured in terms of watts. In higher way we call as a kilowatt. For example, in generation we call this one as a megawatt. Okay. If for example I have an utility that is consuming 2000 watts, for example, right? If I operate this one for 1 hour, right? So we call this one as a 2000 watt hour, or we can call this one as a 2 kilowatt hour, right? So this kilowatt hour is represented in electrical as 1 unit there, meaning that, for example, this is an air con which you are using in your home. You're having a capacity of 2000 watts and you operate for 1 hour. So the typical power consumption or energy consumption is 2000 watt hour. So this basically we call as an energy is because watts is represented in power, hour is in time, right? Power times multiplied by time, and that gives the energy here, right? So this energy is what we call as a unit power, right? So when you see in your electricity bill, typically they say as a, for example, in a typical bill they say as a 18,575 units. What does this mean is right from the installation of your energy meter in your home, as of today, you have consumed this much of kilowatt hour of power in your home. So this is what it means by the units that you see typically from the electricity bill. You can see from here. Okay, I think this one cannot read. So this one you can read from your energy meter. If you go to your energy meter, and all the houses will be having what we call as an energy meter at the entrance of your electricity unit there. So you can see from that how much is the units you have consumed. Okay, so how to read your actual bill is, like for example, this is happening on the 1st of June, right? Okay, so today is 13th of July. So you go back and look at the readings there. And for example, if it's typically mentioning as this much of value, that means between June to July, you have consumed the difference in these units as your actual power there. So this is what the power consumption for that particular slab period. So in TNB usually come to measure your electricity bill every 2 months. In some countries they measure every 1 month. In some countries they measure typically 3 months or 6 months, like that. But normal slab is every 2 months you'll get a bill. That means every 2 months the energy meter is read from the previous reading and the current reading, and the difference in value is your actual units of power consumption. Say for example, in this case, so I have 18,900, right, minus 18,575. So this is giving me 325 units of power is consumed. So this is what I can understand from this energy meter reading. Right. Okay. So now how I need to calculate how much power or how much money I need to see is given by what we call as a tariff here. You can see from the tariff at the right side. So this is a typical tariff given by the TNB or Tenaga National Aircraft. Okay. So you can see from here for the first 200 kilowatt hour, that means 1 to 200 kilowatt hour. That means 1 to 200 units per month. Per unit you need to pay about 2180. That means 21 cents per kilowatt hour, right? That's what it means by 21 cents per kilowatt hour. So meaning that if you have 325 units here, you split the 325 into 2. One is 200 plus 125 units. The first 200 units they will charge it 0.218. The second they will charge it, you can see from here, from 200 to 300 rate is 33.04, meaning that 0.334, right? So meaning that 200 multiply by 0.218, right? So this will give you around 24 ringgit 36 cents, right? Similarly 125 multiplied by 0.334, so it's around 41.75. So this total is what we call this one as your total electricity bill for the year. Okay. So you can see from here the first 200 units you are charging by the TNB or the tariff. We call as a tariff 0.2. The moment you conserve or you use more energy than the 200 units, probably the slab is higher than this one. So if you want to avoid the electricity bill at your home, what you need to know is, like, of course, we cannot compromise on the usage of electricity at home, right? So typically what you need to do is, like, you need to maintain to see that whether this slab is within this boundary or not, right? So if you operate within this boundary, then you can save a lot of energy. You can see from here, it's almost half of the value, right? 100, but you can see it's almost double of that value here in terms of energy consumption. So this is what you need to know in terms of energy consumption for your home here. Okay. Okay. So now this one is, we understand how much is what is watts, what is watt hour, kilowatt hour, what do you mean by units, and how the tariff is actually calculated. But how to find the from the home, how to calculate or how to identify which one to reduce the in terms of the power consumption, because if in your home you have several electrical utilities like fan, you have uh, light, you have aircon, you have fridge, you have washing machine. The fridge runs for the whole day, right? Washing machine for a particular time period only. Aircon maybe for a particular time period only, right? TV for a particular time period only, right? So you can do a simple calculation, or you can ask your like brother, sister, or even your kid to do in your home. You look at you make a table like this, make a load component, right? Then you say that how many quantities you have. Like, for example, I have an AC at your home. Then you say that how many quantities of AC you use. Say for example, I use 2 units of AC here. Then you go and look at the watts of the AC. So typically this is will be represented or put inside behind your utility equipment. Like for example, if you go see the fan behind, you can see what is the watts or the power consumption by this typical device like that. Say for example, in case of AC, this is consuming, for example, I'm taking approximately 1500 watts per unit, right? Watts per unit, right? Then you calculate this one in terms of a kilowatt hour, kilowatt, meaning that I have 2 units inside. I have 2 units here. That means 3000 watts is usage, right? So that means it is approximately, it is a 3 kilowatt of power here. Then you have to see how much hours it is utilized per day. Say for example, I'm using only the AC for typically for 6 hours. Probably the compressor operating is maybe only about 4 hours of time. So as you know that inside the fan, inside the refrigerator, inside the your aircon all consist of electrical dynamic loading. That means movement, moving element. We call this as motors, right? So operating time for that AC might be only for 4 hours per day, for example. The compressor operating time is only for 4 hours a day, right? So from this you can calculate the kilowatt hour. The kilowatt hour is nothing but multiply of this one. That means it will give you 12 kilowatt hour. Then you can calculate for 2 months, for example. This is per day, right? So you can calculate for 2 months of period here. So 12 into, this is per day, 12 into 60 days, for example, right? So this is your total power consumption of your AC alone, 720 units of AC power alone. So likewise, you can do for example, if you take a tube light, the light you are using for your reading purposes. So you are using, for example, two units, 2 units here, for example, or maybe 8 units here, for example, right? But the power consumption by tube light is very small. It's only about 50 watts. So from there you can know that 5 times 5 is 40, right? 400. So which is nothing but 0.4 kilowatt hour. So multiply by maybe you're using for 8 hours of every day. So you convert that one, it will give you approximately 3.2 kilowatt hour. 3.2 multiplied by 60, right? So this will give you 7.72 units of power here, right? So likewise, you can calculate the total load for your home, like a refrigerator. For example, you put for fridge, right? Then, for example, washing machine. So washing machine is not going to be used for the whole day, right? So you cannot multiply by 24 hours or 12 hours like this. So you have to see that the operating case, for example, you're using for 2 hours. Probably the motor rotation is maybe about 1 hour 30 minutes or something like that, right? Similarly for television, for example, if you are having an LCD television or some sort of the analog type of television, how much is the power? Then you typically add all this power, that will be your total power, which is nothing but your 325 units here. Say for example, in this case it's giving you 1200 kilowatt hour for totally. The total power for 2 months is 1200 kilowatt hour, right? From that you know that 1200 units is your consumption of power for 2 months. So you go back to here, you can see from this part here. So up to 200 kilowatt, 21.80, 0.2180, 300, 200 to 300 is 33. You look at 300 to 600 is 51. Look at 900 and above, it is about 57, 57 ringgit or 0.57 ringgit per kilowatt hours. So meaning that, so if I want to reduce this bill by 200 units here, right? Okay. So what is my strategy is, my strategy should not be looking at the consumption of lower power devices, meaning that tube light typically if you leave it on for longer time is still okay, but aircon is a major culprit, right? Aircon is a major culprit there. Fridge we cannot avoid, right? Because we want to continuously keep the things to be in a particular degree centigrade, right? That's why fridge is not okay. Washing machine is only only for weekly once or weekly twice you have to do. So the major culprit comes from the aircon load here. So that's why if you are constructing your new house or if you are planning to buy for a new aircon, the best way is to get an aircon that is people typically put as energy saving aircon or something like that, right? So this will try to reduce the energy that is taken away from the electricity board. So once it reduces electricity from the electricity board, so typically even the 1500 is the capacity, so it will be operating with the same capacity at full load. So typically if you look at 1500, it will not be operating at 1500 at every time. So it will be operating less than that value there. So from there you can typically understand the energy flow. Common terms we say is how the money is spent for the utility in your home as a bigger picture there. So if you want to put an energy measure inside your home, don't look for low power devices. Like if you have an LED bulb, so it's not very critical if it runs for 24 hours a day. If you have a tube light also, it will not consume much power from that. But if you leave your aircon for longer period, probably the power consumption is a very huge value from there. Okay, so of course other parameters also like aircon. If you see from for example, if you have only one person in the whole room and you're using a very high capacity aircon, also it is not an energy saving measure, right? So that's what we call this one as a load. Load means like how many people are able to utilize that particular space, right? That space to the load circuit. Okay, like a hall, for example, you can put for higher tons of capacity, whereas a single room you can put a lower type of capacity there. Split AC, for example, is another way you can use it for the energy saving measure there. Okay, so probably you can educate your siblings or your kids at your home to see the impact of how to save the energy from the given case. So this one is a typical electricity bill. I picked up my own electricity bill. You can see from here. I'm not sure whether you can see this clearly or not. So I consume about 299 kilowatt hour, 299 units here. So that means they split into 200. Up to 200 is one slab, 99 is the second slab here. So if I go one more unit or two more units there, then my charging will move to the 51.40 there. Okay, so you see from here, so I spend the first 400 around 43 ringgit. The second one I spend about 33 ringgit. Right, you see the difference here is almost half, right? But I pay about 3/4 of that money there. So this is how we can read the energy meter bill and from what happens to the given case. In case of the recent electricity bill hike, is typically because they measure after a longer period, meaning that as you know that during the lockdown, so they're not able to take the reading, like sending people physically to measure the actual energy meter reading. So they prorate, meaning that for example 76 ringgit means they prorate. For example, they will go back and look at 299 units of energy consumption for a month here. So you multiply that one for 4 months, it will be approximately about 1200 units here. So when they go back to calculate 1200, they will look at the slab once again here. Typically, I will never, if 2 months consistently, if I'm using, I will not be using not more than 600 units of power, right? Now this becomes 1200 units. That means up to 600 units, like 0 to 200, I will pay 1. So 200 to 300, I will pay 1. Then 300 to 600, I will pay 1. This is what typically I do. So now what I need to do is like I have to pay for 0 to 200, 200 to 300, 300 to 600, then 600 to 900 and 900 to 1200. But if I split this one into two, I will start this value from a lower value. Probably this is 0 to 300, right? 0 to 300 means once again I will be using 0.218 and 0.334. But when I take the reading as a whole, my tariff now becomes a 600 is about 0.5480. So that's why you can see the electricity bill is rising huge when we are paying for the recent time here. Of course, government comes in a different way to calculate and come up with to say as a subsidy to take away if your energy if you used your energy less than 100 ringgit, I think 100 kilowatt hour is zero. So they make it to become like the reading to become zero like that. So you can go back and check from your electricity bill for the previous 2 months or 3 months or two times or three times. Then you can roughly calculate like how much is the energy difference you can see from here. Okay, so this is the June month one. Like you can see from here, my total consumption now becomes 200 plus 100 plus 300 because they calculate 200 plus 300 as 300 here. That the second time reading is they calculate as 300 in total. So you have to be, if you go back and look at the electricity bill reading, then probably you can read on this one and you recalculate the system there, then you can find from like the case of in India also the same like RMCO was there. So what typically electricity board allow us was we go and take our own reading from your home, right? And during, for example, March they locked down, right? March, April, like April 15, I go and take the reading. Then I send this reading to the electricity board, and they will update this one in the electricity board website. so that you will not be paid like you will not be calculated at the end of 4 months, but rather you'll be calculated in 2 months. So this is about saving money. We can call this one as a return of investment. So return of investment here means how do you save the energy uh, from the system. That's what it means by return of investment. So this is the first topic which I want to discuss with you guys or present to you guys. Okay, the second topic is all about the current. Okay, so of course this is not much on the technical presentation, as I told earlier also. What we try to see is the generic aspect of what as a common man we understand as a current. Okay, so if you go to West, for example, the electricity power supply they use is 110 volt, 60 hertz, right? Whereas if you go from if you go to East Asian countries, right, Southeast Asian countries, right, typically the voltage range is 220 50 hertz, 230 50 hertz, and some cases 250 50 hertz like this. So why this difference? That is the first question that comes to our mind, right? Why different countries need to have a different power level, right, or different voltage and the current setting and that. The second question is your common home, where we are using the plug point, where we can some of the plug you can see the third pin, right, and the 3-pin plug. The third pin is typically is a heavier one. That means it will be longer one, and the diameter will be a bigger one, right? So we try to probe on these two facts for in this topic then. Okay, first of all, about the voltage level, right? So as I mentioned, like 230 volt 50 hertz is typically in Malaysia, the range is 220 to 240 volt. But in India, for example, 230 50 hertz. Okay. So this voltage change keeps on fluctuating is because this depends upon how much what is the generating voltage in the power station, right? If a power station is very stable, this voltage will be stable. If the power station is not very stable, so this voltage will be fluctuating. In some cases, it can even go to 190 volt, 180 volt like that. So during that time, what they do is they will reduce or black out some of the areas so that it can boost back the voltage to the normal value. Okay. Okay. In some countries, we use this 110 volt, 60 hertz as a base. Right? Like if you go to US, for example, it's 110 volt, 60 hertz. That's why when you buy an equipment or a mixer from US, if you want to bring back to your home, you need to have a converter to convert that 110 volt to 230 volt. Just like your adapter, there will be a converter. You have to connect that one before you connect to the equipment. Otherwise, what will happen is your equipments need 230 volt, but you are giving only 110 volt, right? So you are reducing the voltage, reducing the force that is given to the equipment, right? So it will still move, it will still rotate, but it will rotate with a low speed. So when done with low speed, it will not solve the purpose of what it is want to do. Okay. So if we go back to the origin of electricity, as we know that in physics or in your SPM level, we know that father of electricity is Thomas Alva Edison, right? So we know him as the father of electricity. So during those times, he tried to see that whether the energy generated due to heating can be converted into some sort of illumination or not, some sort of some form of energy that it can make the things to be visible or not, right? So that is where he found out or he invented what we call as a current. So this is what we call as a DC current at this time. So DC current essentially means so you supply a force to a body, the body will provide or produce the force proportionate to the supply voltage. So that's why it's called as a DC current here. So typically what happens, it will be a straight line here. That means you give a straight force to an equipment, the force will provide a force equivalent of this one in a directly proportionate manner, right? That is what is called as a, that's why it is a straight line here. But the issue with the DC current is uh, you need to have for example every 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers you need to have a separate DC generating unit, because it cannot be transmitted for a longer distance. Because you continue to travel this one a longer distance, the losses will be more once the losses will be more, automatically your voltage available at the second part, like from part A, I am giving this voltage here. Part B is about 2 kilometers from here. So during the transmission, the losses will occur. When it reaches the point B, it will not be the same magnitude as this one. So here 110 here means this is the 110 value here, right? So this will not be 110 here. So this is the biggest challenge in case of a DC current. So that means the transmission is a biggest challenge in a DC system. The transmission of power from one point to the another point. So parallelly, Tesla was also, I think you heard about this guy, right? Tesla also was in place there, right? So Tesla invented the alternate source of this motion, called as AC current. So parallelly, this AC current is becoming popular. Purposely is because AC current can generate higher voltages or lower voltages using the coil interaction. We call this one as a transformer. It's nothing but you have one coil here, you have another coil here. If you increase the number of coils in this part, and you pass, for example, a smaller current here, the current here will, the smaller voltage here, for example, the voltage here will be higher if the number of turns will be more. Turns means number of windings is more. This is what the transformer does. This one you can see in your roadside, in your start of your condominium, everywhere you can see the transformer. So because of this flexibility of the transformer, you can place transformers as a different part between the leads here, so that the power can be boosted whenever you want to boost the voltage from one point to another point here. But of course, when you have parallelly two different intelligent men, there will be always a feud between these two people. And Edison comes with a lot of questions for Tesla to prove he is wrong, right? But eventually, some of the companies during that time, they see to be more viable for AC current because of the industrialization, you have a lot of companies coming in, and transportation becoming means and source, right? So that means you expect the industries to be very far away from the city, and the city needs power, the industry also needs power there. Okay? So that's why AC becoming very popular there. But since at that time the voltage standard was 110 volt, Tesla also proposed to start with a 100-volt AC system then. Right? So AC system is nothing but, so there is alternating in nature here, right? Like here. So frequency here 50 hertz or 60 hertz means that means how much time it will take for a alternating current to finish one cycle, right? If you see from here, the average voltage is 0 here, right? Positive equal to negative here, right? So this is the voltage and this is the time period. So frequency is nothing but your inverse of your time period. So if I'm able to complete 1/50 cycle within one period here, 50 hertz in one cycle, right? We call this as a 50 hertz frequency. If it's able to do in 60 hertz value, it is called as a 60 hertz component. Okay, but one problem with this system is when we are using at a very low voltage, because we know basically power is equal to voltage into current here, right? So when we think about the voltage, automatically if you want to have the same power, this power is coming from the EV, power and voltage is coming from the EV, right? So if your voltage is reduced, proportionately current will be reduced to maintain this power fixed value, right? So that means if I want to increase the current for increasing the power here, right, for the same voltage level, I need to increase the size of the cable, because current is actually carrying in a cable here, right? So I have to increase the size of the cable. Once I want to increase the size of the cable, automatically the money involved or the resource involved for the current will be higher. That means the copper utilized for the transmission will be higher here. So that's why to make it cost effective, they come up with, in Europe, this is all in US, in Europe they come up with a type where is it possible for us to increase the voltage to a higher value or not, right? The idea is to increase the voltage to a higher value so that you can keep the current still at a lower, so that you can use less copper. Less copper means it can always save a lot of money there. So, okay, before that we need to understand what is voltage and what is current, right? Say for example, if you take a simple cable like this, right? In layman words, we know that current is all about motion of electrons, free electrons, what I mean. Just for our understanding, we take it the speed at which the electrons move, right? The speed at which the electrons move is what we call as a voltage, right? The quantity of the electrons or the density of the electrons inside is what we call as a current here. So this is quantity, right? So quantity of electrons that can be captured inside this one is current. The force at which these electrons move in a system in a circuit is what we call as a voltage component. So when we think about quantity, as I mentioned earlier also, so you have to increase the diameter. Okay, so that's why they propose this type of 230 volt in mentioned compared to that of 110 volt. Okay, let us take the simple case of understanding in terms of current, right? Like for example, you take a 1 kilowatt power, P equal to 1 kilowatt. Suppose if I am using 110 volt, so I want to calculate a current from here. The current required is 1000 divided by 110. So this is approximately 10, so probably 9 amps then. Okay, approximately 9 amps. 1000 divided by 110. 9.9, 9.09. Okay? 9.09 amps. Okay, for the same system, for the same power rating, if I'm using a 230 volt, for example, right? So you can see from here it's already half, right? So 1000 divided by 230 is approximately 4.3 amps. Meaning that if I increase the voltage, right, increase the speed at which the motion happens, right, for the same size, same diameter here, right? So as I mentioned, like when the current increases, the diameter of the cable will become bigger here, right? So when the diameter become bigger, your material will become higher, right? So that's why they go for higher voltages or in terms of what we call as a 230, 110 become 230 volt. Okay. So if the next question will may rise to you is like what will happen if you rise the 230 to become 440 volt? This is our next value of proportionate. So it is also possible, but there is a capacity for us to have a shock at our utility point, right? Okay. When we use in the lab electrical equipment, it's a different system. When we use at home, it is a different system. When you use in the lab, all our electrical engineers, they know the issue of the shock. They know the problem of open circuit, short circuit, all this one. But you cannot expect a housewife or a person who is living at home to understand the impact of the voltage there. Okay, so 230 volt AC is still bearable in terms of current shock, but anything over 230 volt, it is always subjected to the shock here. So what is shock, right? Next question comes is what is a shock here, right? In some point, for example, the shock, you can feel the shock, but still you're not, you don't have any paralytic effect, right? In some cases, when you feel the shock, it says electrolytic, so the person may even die. So shock occurs in two ways. So let's see that what is a shock first, right? When you think about shock, so for example, um, for a current to flow in a circuit, say for example, you take a bulb here, right? I put a switch here. I have a bulb here. Okay, this is your power plug here, right? So you give an AC waveform here or a DC waveform. For example, DC means plus minus here. For example, you close the switch here. When I close the switch, so this is actually forcing the electrons to move here. So that means the voltage is now starting to build up in the bulb here, right? So because of the voltage, a current flows to the circuit here to complete it positive to the negative here. So this is basically from the source, from the EB supply here. So this condition in which you close the circuit is what we call as a short circuit, right? You are shorting the circuit here. You are closing the circuit here. Okay. If, for example, if you're opening the circuit, meaning that you don't put the switch here, that means you are not pushing the voltage to move here. So this condition is what we call as an open circuit here. Okay, in electrical, we call this like short circuit means something like fully no drop in voltage here, right? So this is a typical short circuit, but for our understanding, I'm using this lamp as an example here. So this one is called short circuit, where a current flows here, right? An open circuit is where a current will not flow over the circuit here. So typically in case of an open circuit, you don't feel any shock of the because there is no current flowing into the circuit here. But a human body, when you see that, as we know that there are three different material in place here based on the property. One is called conductor, the second is called semiconductor, and the third is called insulator. Okay, insulator means so typically it's a high resistance, so zero current. High resistance means zero current, no current will flow through the insulator part. Okay, short circuit, semiconductors or conductors. Semiconductors means partially conduct the current. Conductor means fully conduct the fully conduct the current. Okay. So if you see from typical human capacity up to 10 milliamps of current, you can still feel the pain here. Anything over 100 milliamperes is quite dangerous for a given case. So because the moment when the current is higher than your expected one, what happens is if you're, for example, if you're going and touching your live wire there, okay, so and you are not putting any you are connecting yourself through the body to the ground through your legs here, right? Okay, the blood itself is a conducting part here. So what happens is like the motion of the particle is trying to move through your body, right? Based on your resistance, right? If your resistance is very low, then the current will flow very fast and it will short circuit. So once it short circuit, it will create an impulse on your body. So the impulse will be captured by the muscles. The muscles will try to contract. Once the muscles contract, automatically you can feel the clotting of the blood. Okay, so thereby you feel like an electrolytic system. Okay, it's a normal case in case of a short circuit. So how to make your conducting body to become a semiconductor or partially conducting surfaces? The use of insulator between the body and the ground, for example, like use of leather shoes, for example, or using gloves, for example, right? So these are the things that is actually making the system to become uh, what we call as like a fully conducting to moving to the semiconducting system or partially conducting system here. Okay. Typically, shock is not danger, particularly in case of your home, for example, it's not quite dangerous. But when you're using, for example, in your high-end equipment in the labs, shock can be typically a higher value here. Okay, like for example, in Malaysia, I think the standards is uh, quite stringent, not as stringent, quite strict, meaning that you cannot allow the students to connect a live wire or an open wire with a cable exposed to connect to a machine here. So they need to be separately connected with an insulating rug or something to before you connect the system. Okay. So this is to make sure that the protection is over there. So what we see from here is like I introduce the concept of 110 volt, then I talk about 230 volt, then I tell the importance of current and how big is the current is actually uh, danger for us as a home. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The next one is we need to also see on the these are the some of the common things which we use in our home, right? So whenever you need an extra power or extra utility to be connected, we go and look for the extension part here. Right? And of course, you use this type of a plug for connecting almost all the utilities. Like for example, your computer, like your iron pad, for example, your washing machine, your um, fridge, AC, and everything like this. Right? So this is a 3-pin plug. It is called. So the one part is your line. This is called neutral, line and neutral. Because it's an AC, we call as a line and neutral. If it is DC, we call as a positive and negative. So it's nothing but high potential, low potential. Just like water flows from high to low, current always flow from a high potential to low potential. That means when you connect this one to the plug, the current will flow here to the bulb, for example. Then it come back and finish in the neutral here. It's a typical configuration for a system here. But Wherever you're using a round pin, in Malaysia we are using this type of pin, but in some cases, some countries they'll be using this type of round pin. The round pin is typically uh, bigger in diameter, right? And it will be very longer compared to the other two pins. Other two pins are literally smaller. Okay. So when I first attended one of the interview during my early days of my starting of my engineering career, so they asked like, what is the use of this this pin? Right? So my teacher taught me previously to say that this pin is a earth pin. Earth pin is to carry a higher amount of current in case of any shock, for example. In case of any leakage current on the equipment, it will pass through the earth, and the earth will bring the current to the earthing of your whole house there. Okay. Okay. So what he also taught me was that this earth pin is at a lower resistance compared to the neutral. Yeah. So neutral is a lower resistance, and this one is a more lower resistance than the neutral part. So meaning that for earth, this is a higher potential. But when we look at when you open up this type of cable here, so when I say like high current here means that means the cable needs to be higher. That's what I know from here. Right? If I want to carry more current, that means the cable need to be higher here. But you see from the normal 3-pin plug here, right? So you don't see this one as a same size. Sorry, you will see that the same cable size as the other three. The color will be different. So this will be red, for example, this will be yellow, and this will be green. But the size is typically the same, right? So meaning that, so the main purpose of this one being very heavy or hefty is not to, not for the, of course, this is used as a metal, right? This is made up of a metal. The metal will have some conducting particles there. This maybe it is able to transmit the current there. But the primary purpose of this one to become heavier is not because of the uh, it's not because of the leakage current carrying. Rather, it comes with different purposes. Later if you see from the pin plug here, that pin plug is typically if it is even like this. If it is uneven, like the same case here, it will be like this. So in most probability, the case for this one becoming bigger is heavier is they don't want to connect the pin in a wrong position. Say for example, if all these three are the same and all these three sides are the same, probably you are connecting this earth pin to here, right? Maybe the positive here and length and the line here. So which is not the same as here. So that is the prime reason for them to have a bigger part. So one more thing is also we see from here. Uh, let's switch to video first. So you can, I think you can see the plug here, right? And this one is the extension board, right? So when you connect this one to the extension board here, for example, right? I hope you're seeing the video, right? So when you connect this one to here, right? When you are switch on the supply here, so when you want to connect, when you want to remove this one, so probably this will create a shock because if all the three are even here, right, all the three pins are even here, all of this one will come at one time here. Since the bigger pin is on the earth, when you connect to the system here, this goes as the first part. Right? You can see that the bigger pin goes the first part and followed by the base and the neutral. The same goes when you take it out, the lower two pins will come out first and the bigger pin will come out from the part here. So this is another reason for them to have a bigger pin in case of a square. So like this type of devices you see here. So this is a bigger, is slightly longer and slightly bigger there is because of this part here. So we don't want accidentally people to take out like this, it should not come out, right? When people suddenly came out, use this one to remove, it should not come out. So they have to typically move it. When you remove these from the supply, so these two will come out first and this will come out as the last. That means any leakage current will flow through these path here. The same goes when you go inside also. When you connect this one, this will go first, followed by these two. So this is the use of having this type of pin plug in the system here. So in Malaysia, they use this type of system here. Typically, the third pin will be slightly lengthier and slightly heavy or fat compared to that of the other two pin plugs. Okay. Okay, so that's about my second topic there. Okay, the third one is about aircon, or we call us generally we call us an AC. Okay, so we usually see the aircon is always leaking water, right? So when I'm kid, I usually think like, okay, we have to fill in water into the aircon. That's why that water is actually evaporating to see to us as a droplet at the part here. Right? So we want to discuss on why this water is leaking or where the water is actually coming from the aircon. Okay, then also we'll see some other case of the typical air conditioner application here. So when we see the aircon's purpose, uh, we call generically this as a AC. So this can be categorized into two cases. One is called air cooler, the another is called as the air conditioner. Right? So air cooler is simple, right? You have a cooler mobile unit like this, right? Then you have a fan inside. Then you pour water here, right? You pour a water cabinet here. The water will make a cool air at the output here. Right? Uh, this is what a typical air cooler does, right? So it cools the air, right? That's why it's called as air cooler. So in air conditioner, which is the key we are going to discuss now. So this typically condition the air here. So it's going to condition the air. So conditioning the air means what? It can change the way in which we want it. In some cases, we want the air to be cool. In some cases, we want the air to be hot, right? In some cases, we want the air to be clean, right? Okay, cool, as you know, that aircon, which is very common in countries like very hot countries, right? Very hot countries, typically we need an aircon to be there. Okay, in cold countries, of course, there is a heater also. You need to have an air heater that can heat the space. So this area is what typically is called as an engineering, we call as an HVAC system there, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning system here. So typically the heating part is coming where you need to heat the space. We call this a space heating. You need to heat this room, for example, in colder countries, for example, right? So there you need a hot air to be there. The third one is like ionizer, right? You can see from the market also there is something called ionizer, which is providing a clean air for the inside temperature, right? So that is why it is called as a conditioner here. Conditioner means it is conditioning the air depending upon the requirement of the system here. Whether you want to condition it to become cool, from hot to become cold, or from cold to become hot, or to make the to remove the particles from the environment, right, from the air. That is why it is called as a clean air or the ionizer here. Okay, so let's try to understand the leaking part and how what is the use of this water that is removed from the aircon. Okay, so let's take a simple example, like you take a simple a glass like that, right? You pour a cold water, right? Then you keep the cold water in space for a while, meaning that you will just let the cold water um, placed in a table like this one, for example, right, for a while. So what you can see after a while is you can see the drop of water particles on the surface of the uh, on the uh, on the water tumbler there, right? So this one we don't know the water is coming from inside the water or it's taken away from the environment there. Okay? So this is the principle. It is a basic principle that makes researchers to understand the motion of um, waves can happen from liquid to the gaseous state. Right? So So we know this one. This is because of the condensation that is happening. Because the difference in the temperature is trying to absorb the air molecules around that one. So the air molecules, when it comes to the hard surface, it will convert into water there. Because you know that around the environment we have two hydrogen and oxygen there, right? So when it comes in contact with a cold surface, automatically this will combine to become a water molecule, which is actually parting. This one we know from the from our physics, early physics there. Okay. The key here is so the liquid particles, right? So when you apply a heat over the for liquid particle, it can become a gas, right? So this process is what we call as an evaporation, right? And for example, the evaporation you can see from the glass door, car door, sweat, inhale, exhale, water particles. All this one is a typical example for an evaporation. Like for example, sweat from the body, right? The body generate the heat when it comes in contact with the external environment. It try to capture the particle, then it will create the water particles on the surface of the body, right? This is what we call as a sweat there. Okay. So if you do the reverse process of from gas to liquid, you have to cool it, right? You cool it, then it becomes like an cooling here. Okay, so this principle is what is used in an aircon system there. So meaning that there is no specific water we are pouring into the aircon, but it is it is observing the particles available around the coil surface, and become water molecules, and this water molecule is connected to the aircon part here. Okay, so in aircon there is something you can see from here. This is the part of combining both heating and the cold surface here, right? So this is your typical uh, evaporation part, and this is basically a condensation part. They put together, it becomes like an aircon here. In AC they use a material called FC. I think this one we also know this one, hydrochlorofluorocarbon, right? So what actually happens is like the aircon principle, as we know that, right? It takes away the heat from the room, right? Then it sends back to the external party, right? Then it compress and let it out to the atmosphere through the fan, right? Then now the gas, right? The gas will return back, condense back to become liquid, and it comes back to the aircon, right? It comes back to the aircon here. So you can see there is a coil over the surface of this aircon here, right? This is the aircon part here, right? So this actually captures the water molecules are, as I mentioned, like there is a 2H and O at the atmosphere here. It will absorb those particles and becomes water. And typically you can see a small hose that is coming out of the aircon, that is letting out the water from the aircon. Yeah. Okay, you can see in the split AC unit, when you have a unit in your home, you can go and look at your outside, right? There is a small chamber there that is actually letting out the water whenever your aircon is in function there. Right? Or you can even typically see the aircon, the water particles under the part of surface here. Okay. So of course this one is a very clean water because it is absorbing the energy from the environment here, right? So it is taking the energy from the environment here. So this is good to use, meaning that so this can be used for some purposes, but for drinking it is not advisable, because it is some air particles also has nitrogen, other chemicals also there. So the possibility it can create a nitrous oxide during within this combination is also possible there. Okay, so we don't need to call this one as a leakage anymore, right? This is not a leakage water, but rather it is actually generating the water here. So next time people say that it's a leaking water, say that it is not leaking water, but it's actually generating the water from the environment here. So if you go in the research level, it is also another high-end research where they try to capture air molecules and convert into water, drinkable water surface. I think our first PhD student also do some work related to that one under Prof. Mustaq last time. Okay, so coming back to here, so when you say as generating water, so that means it can be either it can use, but when you come to consume, you cannot consume the water here. So you have to understand this part. So probably we can collect this water using a trough or using your some places where water is more scarcity there, this can be reusable for the given place. So that's about the Aircon which I want to share with you. So I have two more topics. Bear with me. If it is boring, please bear with me. Okay. The next one which we most commonly use is our mobile battery. So I have a question there. Okay. So next one we have is the mobile battery there, right? So which is very critical, and without that one, and most probably we cannot live, right? Um, but the biggest issue with the mobile battery is like whether when you charge for the whole night, uh, whether your battery is going to burn, right? This is the first question that comes to your mind. And the second thing is why the battery is bulging at some point, right? If you see some of the batteries becoming fat over time, and this is another thing. Then the third part is on the fast charging, right? So there is some charging in the battery available, called as a dash charging, boost charging, or fast charging. Whether this is suitable or whether this is correct to use for our application or not. So this is what I want to share with you on this mobile battery condition here. Okay, let us take the first case of charging for overnight a mobile phone. Okay, say for example, if you are if for example if your mobile is charging for a period, for example, like your, I think you know the mobile charger is something like an adapter, right? So there is an adapter there, right? And the adapter is connected to the your mobile unit here, right? And this is connected to the 230-volt supply here, and this is what it is. Inside this one it has an SMPS switch mode power supply with the control circuit. The control circuit is the one that is actually managing the power flow happening from the adapter to the mobile unit there. Okay, if there is no control circuit, the possibility that mobile phone can reverse the voltage back to the supply here. So that's why this control circuit is very important in mobile unit. Okay, so in terms of power consumption, first of all, we see like how much is the power consumption. Whether if I connect the mobile phone for the whole night, whether I'm going to consume very high power or not. Right, that's what the question is about. Okay, so typically, if your mobile phone is taking a current of 0.5 amps of current, for example, 0.5 amps of current, okay, and you're operating at 230-volt power supply, and typically this gives you about 230 multiplied by 0.5, so about 115 watts. So this is the power consumed using a typical charging if the charging current is 0.5 amps current and coming from a 230-volt supply. Suppose for example I'm charging this one for 8 hours of time. That means in the night I just put in the charger, and in the morning I want to take it back for the charging. So now this becomes 8 times your actual is 11.5, right? Okay, 115. Okay, so 115 multiplied by 30 days. Right? So this is my power consumption for a 115 multiplied by 8 hours of charging every day multiplied by 30. So which is about 27 kilowatt of power. 27 kilowatt hour or 27 units of power. 15 multiplied by 0.5. Okay, so this much of power is under the loading condition. Loading condition means you are connecting to the system here. Okay, so if for example under the no load condition meaning that if your battery becomes fully charged, for example it is fully charged, the control circuit will isolate the supply from here, because see from here when I want to get a 5 volt from here, suppose with the lithium ion, and the lithium ion is needed 4.2 volt for example, right? So up to 4.0 volt this mobile is fully charged, right? Once it is fully charged, it will not take any current from the given case, because the output from here is a Once again is a DC output voltage here. So when there is no flow of current, the current will become as a 0 amps of current here. But still, when you see, when you look using a multimeter, there will be a small current of current will be there, even if you disconnect this part from the meaning that you just plug in your adapter and you're not charging, connecting your load to the circuit. You're not connecting the mobile phone to the circuit here. Still, this will consume current. You can try in the lab using your multimeter. So roughly it is about certain percentage of this current. So I take it as 0.005 amps of current multiplied by 230. So this value is very, very small. Okay, once again, you want to calculate 0.005 multiplied by 230, 0.115 volt. Right. So you multiply this one once again by 30 days. Right. Multiply by 8, multiply by 30. It's about 27.6 or 0.0276 units there. Okay, so this is under the loading condition. Loading condition means I connect the mobile to the adapter here. So in this case, this is called as a no load. I'm not connecting the mobile phone to the adapter, but the adapter is still connected to the supply here. Okay, so why this current is still consumed by the adapter is because the adapter itself is having a control circuit which needs power for the given case here. So that's why when you see that even if you don't use your electricity in your home, for example, you're renting a home and the home is not having any what is called like a power usage, but still you can see a minimum amount of power consumed by the home, like 16 ringgit, 13 ringgit, 12 ringgit, like that. Is because of the operation here. It's similar to the other standby operation. For example, in a television, when you want to change it to the on state or off state operation for a while, you don't switch off the television, rather you convert that one or move that one to the standby mode. The standby mode still consumes the power. The power is consumed by the television's electronic circuit. Okay, so that's what you have to understand. Even if you charge your mobile phone or does not charge your mobile phone, there will be a minimum power consumption of power here. But once your mobile phone is fully charged, even if you leave your mobile phone overnight, this will not consume much power there. That is what we need to see from there. Then of course the same thing also, even if you continue to mobile charge for a longer period, this will not make the mobile phone to blast or become non-operational like that. Okay, so this is a myth. We usually tell like people like don't charge, overcharge. So the moment you charge, still if you leave the mobile phone to the system here, the current is not going to the mobile phone, but still the energy is consumed by the control circuit inside the system. Okay, the next case is like a bulging of the battery, right? So why the battery becomes bulged? Okay, as you see from here, right, in this case also, if I connect this mobile phone for longer time, as I mentioned, like this mobile phone inside, they have a battery inside, right? There is a battery inside there. So because the power sent to the battery is restricted here, this battery will not this mobile phone will not become, or this battery will not become a bigger one. Okay, okay. But still, why this happens in terms of blasting is, for that we need to know, go back to the basic of our Coulomb's law, right? Coulomb's law state, for example, a positive will always attract a positive. Okay, a negative will always, a positive will always repel each other. A negative will always repel each other. A positive and the negative will attract each other. Right? So this is a simple representation of Coulomb's law, which we know from our first course. Okay, say for example, we isolate this battery from here, right? So I'm taking out the battery alone. I don't put the adapter in the mobile phone now. I'm just connecting this battery straight away to the DC supply, for example. For example, this is a 5 volt DC. and I want to connect this one to become like a lithium ion battery, for example, then it is connected to the DC source here. So say for example, as we know that inside the battery, so there is what we call as an anode, there is what we call as a cathode here, right? This is anode and this is cathode, and we know that anode is ready to release the electrons and cathode is ready to accept the electrons here. And in between that one, we don't want the motion to happen between the anode and cathode. That's why we put a separator here, or we call this as a insulator, or we call this as a dielectric there. Right? So we insulate so that the motion of anode to cathode does not happens through the dispenser. Okay, now I'm connecting this one to the charger here, right? So what happens is this is a positive, right? When I connect this one to positive here, this is ready to release the current here, right? Negative charges, right? So when this negative goes to here, positive negative will attract. So this will push the positive negative to here, and this negative negative will repel. Once this negative negative repel, then it will go back and store back in the cathode here. So this is how the charges are moved from the cathode to the anode to the cathode here, such that all this will become positive and all this becomes a cathode. All this becomes as a negative particle. So this element which is made up of which is called as an anode is ready to release the electron here, minus, and this minus goes here, this is plus, right? Charging, this is a charging condition, plus. So plus minus will attract, so this will become push the electrons to here. When this come to here, this is negative negative, so this will repel. When this repel, it will go back to deposit on the cathode. So this part is what we call as a charging component there. Okay, so okay, in our case, what I'm trying to do is after I get charged fully, for example, this is 4.2 volt is required for the battery. This is your mobile battery here, and this is your charger. Charger is coming from external DC supply that is connect to here, so that I make this positive negative equal to this positive negative, so that all the voltage from here is deposited to here, right? Okay, so now what I do is I connect this one to a 5-volt supply here. The same anode cathode. Now this is fully charged, meaning that the voltage here across these two is 4.2 volt now. So say I'm taking a lithium battery here. Okay. So now what happens is this lithium is all available because this is fully charged, meaning that now this become 4.2 volt. But still I am giving a battery supply here, which is equivalent of 5 volt here, for example, right? But now there is no more electrons here, right? And this lithium is ready to move towards it does not have any path to move through the chamber because it's fully charged already. Now we are over voltaging this one. So this condition is what I'm assuming your mobile phone is straight away connected to the DC supply, not through the adapter and the mobile phone, right? So now what will happen is, so this will create a force on this part because this is positive, lithium is also positive, positive will repel, right? When this positive will repel, this will push the motion or the particles to move towards the uh, the electrolyte part here. In that process, what happens? It will go and heat on the electrolyte surfaces, creating a heat energy there. So this will liberate hydrogen. Right? So this hydrogen will slowly build up onto the surfaces. The same comes to here also negative. Here also negative charge here. So negative will repel. Then it will force the part to hit the electrolyte, and it will slowly consume this electrolyte, meaning that it slowly destroy the electrolyte surface. So this dielectric at one point of time it will become an open circuit. So once this become open circuit, now the circuit is complete. So this will create a short circuit and it will cause the damage for the battery to blast. And if you are connecting the battery to the mobile phone can possibly can blast also. So to avoid this one, if you see the modern phone, this will happen only if you are using, for example, a low grade electrolyte or low grade mobile charger or something. Okay. Typically in most of the recent type of mobile chargers, they have the anode and the cathode, and in between the electrolyte they have what we call as a separator. Okay, so this separator is able to control the, is more resistive, more insulating, right? More insulating means it will resist the motion to happen between the anode part and the cathode part, or from the positively to the negatively. So this is possibly available in most of the very good or high-end mobile phone charger. Okay. So what we see from here is whether charging a mobile phone is going to over the night is going to make my battery to blast. In this case, no, right? And it is going to consume extra power, also no, right? And then if you are connecting the battery straight away to the system there, then there is a possibility for you to blast that. So this one you can do experimentally in the lab also, but with some controlled environment we can test this one here. But if you are using a mobile phone with a less impact on the insulating part, then probably the battery on a mobile phone subsequently can blast or can damage to the ratio. Okay. The third thing which we want to talk about is on the fast charging method, right? So everything is fast in this period, right? Fast forward, fast answer, fast solution, right? So essentially we don't want the charger to, or the mobile phone to charge for a longer period. Okay. In normal case, for example, the normal mobile phone, the typical voltage range is 5 volt, and the current can range from 1 amps and 2 amps of current, depends upon the size of your mobile phone. In fast charging, what happens is, so they use a 9 volt 2 amps, or I'm just taking an example, there are several others available in the market. 9 volt 2 amps and 5 volt and 4 amps there. Okay. Okay, when you are using this, so suppose for example you are assuming a 5 amp hour of battery. This is the capacity of the battery. Ampere hour means, so 1 hour 5 amps can handle, that is called 5 ampere hour. So typically the current maximum it can handle is about 5 amps of current, and that's what it will be ampere hour system. So when you are using for a 9 volt system with a 2 amps of current here, so what happens is, um, uh, as I mentioned earlier, if you remember, voltage is nothing but the velocity of voltage is nothing but the velocity or the speed at which the electrons move, right? So you are pushing the electrons to charge very fast, right? That is what happens in a 9 volt system. When you push voltage to here, as I mentioned earlier also, current is nothing but, suppose if you assume that a water is flowing from a high head to a low head here, right? So depending upon the potential difference, the flow will happen, right? Similarly, current will start from high pressure to low pressure. We call as a high potential to low potential, right? So this is what we call as a current here. Okay, so you are pushing the when the moment you use a 9 volt here, so you are pushing the battery to charge very fast. When you push the battery to charge very fast, what happens is the temperature will straight away rise. When the temperature rise, the usage time will be lower, meaning that the charging will be faster, but the discharging will be very fast. Charging equivalently, the charging is faster, the discharge is also faster. But advantage here is, as I mentioned, like the current is smaller, meaning that the cable size is diameter is smaller for the increase in the voltage here, right? So there is a decrease in the cost when you are using this type of system here. But when you compare for the in terms of the efficiency, this is not efficiency, because anything over a temperature of rating is always not good for the equipment, right? So that's why this is not a recommended way of a charging system. So there are different names available in the market. Some they call as a dash charging, some they call as a boost charging, right? Some they use a dual type of charging. So essentially the fast charging we should avoid. So we should avoid using a fast charging for any type of equipment. Then how about usage of the current, right? So current, as I mentioned, like quantity of the electrons. Quantity of electrons means what? How much electrons can be free flow within the surface, right? So the moment the current rises, your diameter will rise there. So once the diameter rise, your cost once again will rise. So essentially 5 volt 4 amps, the current, the cost will be higher, but your size of the cable will be bigger. Okay? So essentially, when with the time, when the current rises, also the temperature in this case also will be rise, but not like similar to the rough temperature here. So the trade-off in this case is 9 volt 2 amps. Okay, you can use it. So it increases the temperature, reduces the cost, but it's not good for the equipment here. But 5 volt 4 amps, you can use it, but it will be increasing the cost that is available. And of course, both the cases, temperature is a key component for us to take care of the given case. So fast charging, so you can see from here, uh, generically, if you go for a normal charging, it will be very good. Fast charging unavoidable. For example, certain point you need to have immediate charging. Probably you can use once a while, but not at all the point of time. Okay. 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 So blast also, as I mentioned, this is the blast case where we can see the one way is like making this a separator. We can avoid the blast here. Okay. Say for example, in when you connect, in this case, how the blast happens is, so typically when you see from here, the power supply comes from the system here, and there is a charging unit here. From the charging, it goes to a rectifier or reverse diode. We call it a reverse diode here, and this is connected to the battery, right? And this is connected to the load circuit. The load is your mobile phone, right? Mobile phone here. So this is unidirectional flow of current here, right? So when your battery is not good enough, it will still try to hold higher voltages here. The higher voltages, when this voltage, like for example, this is 5 volt, this is 4.2 volt is fine. When still your mobile phone support to, when your mobile phone is only 4.2 volt, but your voltage is 5 volt, which can still push the voltage from the input here, the possibility for this one to increase the temperature is heavy. Because as I told you, like when it goes and hit here, it generates hot spot here, heat energy, the thermal energy will build up onto the surface here. Because of the thermal energy, it will blast at some point of time. So this is the key concept that we need to know when we think about blasting. Meaning that if you continuously put your battery for longer time, it is not going to damage. But if you are using, like for example, in this case, if we say that this case fast charging method, so probably the voltage level is different, right? The moment you use a voltage level different, the temperature will rise, and there is a possibility for your battery to battery discharge in the sense like battery will blast onto the surface. So this is what I want to talk about on the mobile battery. The final topic is on the fan, the usage of the fan. Uh, so fan purpose is exactly opposite to that of the aircon purpose, right? Uh, so fan purpose is to cool the room, right? Aircon purpose is to remove the heat from the room, right? That's a two different things there, right? So what actually fans is made up of, and why capacitors are important in the fan here. Okay, this is also once again going back to the basic of the electrical circuit. This might be a slightly a technical concept because we talk about capacitor. Please bear with me. I tried to uh, minimize the what's called like a technical jargon so that easily people can understand from it. So to understand about the fan, first thing we need to know is about the magnetic circuit. Okay, so being from the engineering background, all of us we know that the magnetism and also the positive negative concept, which I just explained also there. Like for example, if I have a positive system here and I have a negative system here, right? And if I put a moving This is both a static. If I'm moving, if I put a positive, if I put a moving element which is having a negative here and a positive here, it will attract. So the moment it will attract, it will be stand still. If, for example, if I reverse this one, positive and negative here, positive will repel, this negative will repel. Depending upon the force, this will make the motion to happen here. So the positive will move here, negative will come here. And there will be a point once again, the negative will be here, positive will be attracted. So what will happen in this condition is you can have a motion and stop, motion and stop, because the moment when you have positive, repulsion will happen. When you have positive, negative, there will be attraction here. Okay. So if I want to make this one to become continuously moving, which we call as a machine or a motor, right? What I need to do is I need to continuously change this polarity. That means whenever I have a positive, negative here, right? I want this system to be positive, negative here. Whenever this positive, negative here, I want this one to be negative, positive here, so that it can have a motion happens from here. So this part is what we call as a permanent magnet. If I'm able to establish that one using a coil here, we call this as an electromagnet. The electromagnet means we can create a magnetic force using electricity, is called electromagnet. It's nothing but, for example, you take a steel like this, you put a coil like this, then you pass a current here, right? Because the current flow, a magnetic force is created here. This is what we call as an electromagnet. The simple case is your calling bell in your home, right? So the moment people come and switch the calling bell, right? So you are energizing the switch will go and push a current through the coil becomes energized, and the energized coil will go on attach with a tongue. There is a tongue steel plate there. The tongue will go and attract the steel plate there. Then it will create tongue like that. Then you release it, then you switch on, then it will create a switch here. So it's a simple example of how the energy can be created. If I'm able to generate or rotate this one, okay, so this is my supply. If I'm able to generate and move this rotor 50 times, 50 times for one cycle, I call this as an alternating cycle, which I just mentioned there, right? It's an alternating cycle. So the time period is 1 by 50 hertz, right? And this is the peak voltage, maximum voltage. The voltage can be created from here. So why this is called alternating is because it is alternating positive, negative. So negative, positive, one after a full cycle, half cycle, this become positive, this become positive, this become negative. After another half cycle, this become positive, negative, the negative, positive, like that. That's why it's called as an AC waveform for a given case. In a fan also, what we do is we use this one as a iron piece here. Just we take a positive, negative here, then we put an iron piece here. So the moment you put an iron piece here, as I mentioned that, so now I have a coil here, right? I have a coil here. I connect to the supply here, current is flowing here, it creates a magnetic field here. I put an iron piece. Iron piece is nothing but just like a screw or your tester lead, something like a simple rod, for example, right? Iron piece here. So the moment it becomes a positive here and negative here, right? So this becomes this, for example, is like at that position as negative, positive here, right? So this is positive, this is negative here. So during negative cycle, this will become positive on the negative cycle. There will be a point at which when you have positive, negative here, at perpendicular, this will be positive, this will be negative here. So at that point, the machine does not know how to move for the given case, meaning that it is not able to rotate continuously, and it will, like for example, it will move like a stepper motor. Right? Move, then stop for a while, then move, stop for a while, move, stop for a while. And this is significant when you're using a very large type of machine. So that's why what they do is they come up with another winding, right? Another winding that create a voltage when this is creating positive here, and this need to create a negative here. So when this create a positive here, this push here, this will push this negative, will push this part to here, right? So this winding is what we call as an auxiliary winding, which is now common in your electricity, your fan over there. So there is a primary coil, we call this a primary, and there is an auxiliary coil. which is used to generate it. But still it is not able to generate a phase shift is because the rotational force is, because you see this is also coil, this is also coil. So both are inductors, and you know that inductors are in phase. So what they do is they will put a capacitor here, meaning that when the current goes through the circuit here, right? So this is a current going through here. In this case, the input current is like this, but the phase shift of the current will make this one become 90 degrees. So meaning if you want to see from the characteristics, from the primary coil, it will be like this. From the secondary coil, it will be like this. So at any one point you see here, when the voltage is 0 here, the current is given already to the auxiliary winding. Sorry, when the current is 0 in this winding here, the current in this coil is high. So that means this is 0, this is high. When this becomes 0 here, right? When this becomes 0, this will become high here. So meaning that these two coil will symmetrically shift the system such a way that the 0101 is always manipulated, so that the motion of this machine happens continuously. As you can see from this figure, there are two coils here, right? So one is the outer here, another is the inner coil here, primary coil and the secondary coil. The secondary coil is usually connected to the capacitor externally for the starter. So this one we call as a capacitor start and run cable from this. Okay. Just to understand the capacitor impact on the system here. Say for example, you are connecting a capacitor. This is capacitor, I think just as I mentioned previously, like anode cathode with a dielectric in between, that is what capacitor, right? If you are going to connect this one to a battery surface here like this, a DC battery, for example, right? So DC will, the current will flow and it will get charged, right? The moment, for example, this voltage is equal to this voltage, for example, this is 4.2 volt and this is 4.2 volt. That means both are the same potential, the current is 0. So now the current is 0 here. So this is what happens in a mobile phone also, right? When you charge it, once it becomes 4.2 volt, it is exactly the same voltage as the adapter's output voltage. After that, no current flows, 0 current. When there is no current, the power consumption is 0 there. That's why if you remember in the in this case I told you, right, the moment it becomes 4.2 volt, 0 current is first. This current is only coming because of the adapter current from the case here. The same thing if you are connecting to the AC side, right? So I'm connecting this one to the AC side. And of course, after this one, if you want to use it, you charge it, then you put your mobile phone here, then the mobile phone will get the charge from here to use it for the application. Okay. So now when you are using a AC here, okay, so because of the AC here, alternate positive, negative, positive, negative, the charging is also positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, right? So there is continuous current that is flowing here in this case of a capacitor here. That's why in AC, if you see the current is continuously flowing, charging, and then it is try to discharge for the given case. Whereas in case of a DC circuit, the current is 0. So once it gets charged, then it can be used for an application externally there. Okay. For understanding this one, let's connect a simple bulb. When you're connecting a bulb to an AC supply here, right? When you're connecting a bulb in an AC circuit here, this bulb is typically an R load, resistive load. So what happens is, first you need to push the voltage to the winding here. That means the voltage is flowing like this, AC waveform, pushing the voltage here. Then what happens? Then slowly the current is flowing depending upon the resistance of the circuit here. So that means the current will be following the voltage, like this is your voltage waveform and this is your current waveform. So this total is what we call as a power for a typical system. Of course, I'm not considering the power factor, but still it is called as a power for the voltage. This is a case of a typical R load or resistive load, purely resistive load. So if, for example, if you're replacing this resistive load with a capacitor, for example, now I'm connecting to the 0. So first thing what you need to do is you need to put the charge here, because this is now still an open circuit here, right? There is no there is no way for the current to flow here because it's already blocked here. So that means the first thing that goes into the circuit is current. Because of the current, the voltage is built up into the capacitor. That's why when you see the capacitor characteristics, the capacitor will start high because it is charging, right? Then comes to zero. So once the current goes to zero, the voltage will become maximum, right? So this is your capacitor, this is your current, this is your voltage. That's why I say that in capacitor, current is leading, voltage is current. So if you see from the whole concept here, so the use of capacitor uh, is to make shift the characteristics. If you see from this case, voltage is leading the current. In this case, current is leading the voltage. To give a shift of this one is what we're using capacitor here. And you have to understand this concept of capacitor. At the initial part, the capacitor is an open circuit here. So first thing what I have to do is I have to pass the current so that I can transfer the charge that is available from the supply, available on this lead, available on this lead. Once the charge build up onto the surface here by passing of the current here, then the voltage is established across the capacitor. Okay, I think that's all for this session. So I think there is a feedback form. If you have, please jot on feedback so that it can improve for my next presentation. And also, if you have any questions, you can either unmute to ask, or you can put in the chat box so that I can answer in the case here.